officially, yeah, you needed footage. This is it. The fucking OGs.
Welcome back, tribe. All right, tribe. So as promised, we're going to be taking the side-by-side out. We're meeting up here at Dave's house. Dave is going to be the one leading the adventure today. He's the guy driving in the red Jeep. We're going to follow up the rear in the Polaris RZR. And in between the two of us is going to be our friend Adele. She's there in the little yellow Kawasaki. It's a new to her vehicle, so she's excited. We're passing through Gringolandia. There's our street. And we're going to continue north. The next stop on our little adventure is cutting through this tiny little neighborhood called Miramar. From Miramar, we're going to hop back onto the highway and head into the desert out of town. Now, we passed through this desert, but at nighttime coming in, so you guys get to see what the desert looks like during the day. We plan on cutting through a couple of ranches. I'll show you guys what those look like. They're very different to the ranches we have in the U.S., but I think they're fantastic. They remind me a lot of my camper, and you'll see why. So we're going to be passing under the goodbye sign, asking us to come back, and we definitely will. We won't be traveling that far north before we cut off and move through the sort of unincorporated dump zone. Unfortunately, this is part of life here in Mexico. If they have a spot that they can dump some garbage, they will. We're going to be cutting back into town, and we're going north towards Bajo. Loreto's going to be to the south. And here we take the rather rough dirt road out towards Bajo. And Bajo is a neighborhood full of some very large and expensive homes. Our friend Cindy has a home out there. I'll point that out to you guys when that comes up. Her house is the point where we're going to be taking a left into the first ranch area. Now, you're allowed to pass through these areas here in Mexico, provided that if you pass through a gate that is locked, you lock that gate after passing through again. They have livestock, and that's how they keep them in. So we're actually running parallel to the coast right now. You're going to see some large developments here, like this one here. I believe they're putting in some large buildings. This is all for one home, by the way. Those large buildings are going to be probably for the person's yacht. You're going to see a couple more large house, compound style places out here. Before we get to our friend Cindy's house. Cindy's house sits right in front of the opening to the rancher's spot. You're going to see everyone take a left here just past Cindy's house. So her wall ends right there. We take a left here, and now we're on rancher's land. So here we're going to be cutting through the arroyo and passing by the rancher's house there. I don't know if you guys saw it, but that house was made from found items and stuff he could gather out here in the arroyo. I think it's fantastic. I'm sure it's everything he needs. And, to survive out here in this environment, it takes some talent. So my hat's off to them. And I think you guys get why it sort of reminds me of my camper. Recycled items, breathing new life. All right, well, we've come to our first stop, Shell Canyon. I'm going to show you guys exactly why it's called that. So Shell Canyon is called Shell Canyon because The rock walls and caves are all made from these petrified shells and prehistoric coral beds. And we're talking 50, 60, 5, 6 stories high of this petrified shell. Over time, the seafloor millions of years ago was pushed up. I talked about this, turning these islands into the peninsula that we are on now. Here is that physical evidence. You can see the layers of sediment in this cave. Now, these caves are formed over time through weathering and water. An arroyo is a wash-off where it will become a river temporarily after heavy rains. Now you can see some of these caves are massive. I'm 6'4" and I still need to reach to touch the top of the cave. As I look around in this cave, looking up, I realize that I'm literally below a prehistoric seabed. And what you're looking at is the remnants of an animal that lived millions and millions of years ago. And it blows my mind. I like looking for little petrified things, maybe try and find a crab or something that I might be able to chisel out and turn into an art piece, but I'm not sure you're allowed to do that. It doesn't hurt to look, though. I did notice this other cave tucked behind some mesquite trees across the canyon. So you can get a good view of the way the arroyo looks here and how the water rushes through. Everyone's hanging out over there on the other side. We're going to take a walk through this cave system. Love exploring these caves. That's always fun to do. But Shell Canyon is not our main destination. We're going to head further down. What we're driving on is the track to the Baja 1000, and we're curious as to where this canyon meets up with another canyon that we're hoping to get to today. So we're going to finish up our break here, hop back on the side-by-sides, and start heading that direction. All right, so here's a good front side view of Andy's Razor, and you can see there Adele's Kawasaki and Dave's Jeep. On the way out, we get greeted by some of the ranchers' livestock. And right here, you can get a glimpse of these rock walls that I was talking about. They are massive. So as we continue down the arroyo, you'll begin to see remnants of the Baja 1000. Massive, deep ruts, and the road is just completely tore up. Andy had to slow it down as we passed these pens for the ranchers' livestock because the rocks were just getting thrown up everywhere. In which case, we actually lost Dave and Adele for a little while. here you can see how the rancher has used old dry cacti to make fencing for his goat pens and utilizing the mesquite's natural shade. So here we meet up with the access road to the antenna up on the hill there. We're going to continue along the arroyo though, and you'll see where these ruts become very predominant. I would like you guys to make note of Adele's car and how she takes off ahead of us. You're going to find out why that became a problem later. So right about here, the sand gets really soft and the ruts get really deep. So Andy and I shoot off ahead of everybody. He has the most capable vehicle. He's going out to see how bad it is, to see if we can get everybody through. So you can see just how rutted this area is. And as Andy and I make our way back to the group, you'll notice them sort of break off. Adele tried really hard to keep up with David in his Jeep, not realizing that I don't think her vehicle was made for such terrain. There's Adele getting ready to take off, which we'll find out real soon that was probably a bad idea. All right, you're going to see the two other vehicles cut around the outside. You can see Adele right there. And they are trying to avoid these big ruts that we're currently driving in. Now, Dave's Jeep made it through just fine. And you see Adele following Dave's tracks. Yeah, it doesn't work out for poor Adele on this trip. All right, so now once through the really rutted part of this sort of sand trap area, you'll find that Dave and Adele sort of speed off ahead of us. So right here you can see Adele sort of gaining speed. She's trying to catch up desperately to Dave, and we're going to find out in just a few minutes that was a bad idea. So even with Andy's Polaris, we are struggling to get through this sort of patch of loose sand, loose gravel, and large boulders. But we make it back to the highway where we find another bend in the arroyo where sand and gravel has gathered up. We're sitting around trying to figure out how we're going to make it around this next point. When Dave volunteers to go first, followed by Adele once again. All right, after a quick confab, you're going to see Dave take off there in his Jeep, followed very closely by Adele in her Kawasaki. We give it a few seconds to let the dust cloud dissipate. We don't like to eat the dust before we decided to make our way through. Andy wanted to get on the gas a little bit, so we didn't want to make an abrupt stop when we reach the other hill. All right, so you see us taking it really wide, trying to avoid a lot of that loose gravel and sand that can just sort of swallow you up right to the door. Andy can make it over most of this terrain pretty easily. I'm wondering how the other two made it through so quickly. Well, even out here in the desert, we can have a traffic jam. It looks like we've got a little bit of a backup ahead of us. Hey, fellas, how's it going? Dave is going to gently suggest that they move out of the way, and we're going to continue on down this arroyo. I freaking love donkeys. We're gonna see them again a little bit later. So finally back onto the hard pack where we can gain a little bit of ground. We open it up a little bit to try and catch up when we noticed Adele stopped in the middle of the road.
Her tires look like she one of them looks like it might be flat. Yeah. Back up!
At this point, we don't know how bad it is, and I foolishly think I can patch it.
Go. Look.
She's got a flat tire.
Do you have a plug kit?
Get out.
All right. Unfortunately for Adele, I don't think we're going to be able to patch this one. Not out here anyways. So Dave makes his way back once he realizes he's alone ahead of the pack, and everybody gets together to try and solve this problem. But again, unfortunately for Adele, she didn't bring the spare tire. So I find myself needing to remove the flat tire so that she can run back to her house with Dave and bring us the spare tire. So the rest of us find a nice shady spot to relax while we wait for the spare tire to return. Once back, Ray and I struggle to get the spare wheel on. For some reason, the threads won't set. With a little bit of effort, we finally get a couple of threads into the nut to try and get Adele home. When we realize the spare wheel is the wrong size. So once again, I find myself removing it and pulling the damaged wheel and giving it to Dave, who runs into town to get the tire replaced. Fortunately for us, he comes back with Ernesto, our man here in Loreto, who not only gets the tire fixed and put on the rim, but comes out with Dave to put the rim on the Kawasaki. Later, he would drive back with Adele, I'm sure giving her a lesson in Baja off-road etiquette. Needless to say, after our 4-hour ordeal, we all decided that we should probably end the day, especially since Adele just realized that she's going to have to buy some new tires and a spare that actually fits her Kawasaki. Once everybody gathered up their things and we made sure that Adele's new spare tire was on properly, we all turned around and began the journey back to Loreto. Hey, looky there. Our donkey friends have come to see what we're doing. I'm sure this is a bizarre situation for those guys. Once everything was secured and tight and all our tires were aired up, we began making the trip through Baja back to Loreto. Here's a little better view of that rancher's house. Well, I guess if you're going to live out in an environment like this, you'd better be pretty resourceful. And it looks like our rancher here is exactly that. Well, guys, we made it back without any major events happening. Andy and I decided to take a cruise along the Malecon here to check out the Christmas lights, as we are now well within the 12 days of Christmas here in Baja Sur. I have to say it's nice to see the town putting up lights and having more of these holiday festivals. I know that during COVID, a lot of this got shut down, and for many of us down here, it was a strange and awkward experience. It seems now, 4 years later, that things are finally getting back to normal. People are out cruising the Malecon, the lights are up, parades are scheduled, and so much more to come. I can't wait to show you guys all of it. I just want to thank you guys once again for sticking with me as long as you have. And for anybody who's new, welcome to the tribe. Well, guys, in the next episode, we'll be doing some work to Andy's razor and having a Christmas party over at Ray's house. Remember, all of this is possible through you. So if you got something out of this, please consider subscribing. ADHD and caffeine since 1976. Yo, Rambo, yo.